Hey, everybody. When you think of the word midlife, what word do you think of next? For most of us, it's crisis, as in midlife crisis, which is a phrase that's been around for years, and we all understand the negative connotations that come with it. Well, today's guest thinks differently. Greg Scheinman believes that midlife is actually the sweet spot in life for most of us if you put in the work. Greg started a media company focused on the midlife male, and I think he has a powerful message for men but also for women and folks of all ages that can learn something from this philosophy. The midlife male movement is about investing in yourself and enjoying the benefits that come from that hard work. So let's get into the details of midlife with today's guest, Greg Scheinman. Greg Scheinman, thanks for joining me. Appreciate you being on here.
It's good to see you, Greg. I like this. We got two Gregs first thing in the morning, and let's go. Thanks for
Bright
having
and
me.
early.
Yes.
I have to tell you, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a number of reasons. I mean, I recognize like I'm right in your wheelhouse for the demographic that you're talking about, but I really think your message and your platform applies to a lot of people, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. But I think it'd be interesting to know how you got to this place. You've built up this media company. You've got what I think is a really strong message, and I see your all the things you're doing. But how did you get here?
Indirectly.
Yeah,
And what I mean by that is that I did not set out to build a midlife male media company. I did not set out to become the midlife male. I set out to make some very simple and basic changes in my life. And I happened to be in middle age at the time that I needed to make those changes. And what happened because of that, it started at 47. I was a partner in a large insurance and risk management firm. I was the same age as when my father passed away.
Mm.
I had, from the outside looking in, all of the societal or masculine looking metrics for success. I had the good job, career, clients, book of business, title, money, family, wife, two boys. And yet I was unfulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at a tipping point where I felt I could either squander the years ahead of me or I could make some changes and see this next phase of life not as something to fear, but as something aspirational and to be able to live it better. And I didn't know how, like a lot of men.
Right.
And like a lot of other men, I don't ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do therapy. I don't ask for help. I don't burden my wife with this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't let my kids see this.
Yeah.
I don't talk to my friends about this because I become the guy. Here comes Greg with all his problems.
Mm-hmm.
I don't talk to my business partners about this because I'm then the uncommitted, uncertain guy with you. I'm not backable and promotable, and don't talk to the clients about it because I work for them.
Right.
So you feel very, very alone. And what I did is what you're doing right now was I don't ask for help. I don't know how to ask for help. I don't like vulnerability, all these other things in there. So how am I going to get the answers to the test
Mm-hmm.
that I need? And I said, I'm going to launch a podcast. I'm
So
going
that
to
the
ask.
podcast was the first element.
The podcast was the first element.
Yeah.
The pot was, wait a minute, I know how to market. I have a pretty strong network.
Mm-hmm.
I can bring a microphone. People like talking about themselves and telling their stories.
Yeah.
I can actually have a responsibility to ask the hard questions that I want to know the answers to without appearing that it's all about me.
Right.
I mean, this was a really selfish way to go about making change and to sucking information and insights and experiences out of other individuals who were seemingly ahead of me and had it
Mhm.
more figured out.
Mhm.
And I had access, fortunately, to a lot of those individuals. And that's what I capitalized on. I said, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to ask those questions. And what happened, Greg, is I started asking those questions. I started getting some great responses and answers. And then I started writing down what I was hearing.
Mhm.
I started what I call my ACE principle now. I started aggregating from what I was learning and hearing, curating it down to what I thought was going to work for me, and eliminating what wouldn't.
Yeah.
And then I went out and tested and retested this and started writing about what was happening to me. And this is what spiraled. The podcast started to get listeners.
Mhm.
What I was writing about on Sunday mornings about what was happening to me became the blog, then the newsletter. And it went from being this tree falling in the woods to hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of subscribers.
Mhm.
And that became the book. The conversations from the podcast, my insights of what was happening. I got approached by a publisher. So all of this happened over a 3-year period, 47 to 50,
Wow.
where I just indirectly kind of backed in to what's happened and what has ultimately become the Midlife Male brand, which is this digital magazine every week, the podcast, events and experiences, the book, speaking, coaching, and here we are now. I get to have conversations with you where you're asking the questions. I get to answer.
Yeah.
Well, I think a key thing in there, and you used the phrase I started the podcast, I started writing. That's a key point here. You chose to start. You chose to take action, right? And I think that can be a hurdle for a lot of people, right? They find reasons not to do something or they get overwhelmed. And so, that's definitely a key point. And I think the oh, I picked up some stats from one of your newsletters I just wanted to share as to why there's an audience for this, why this is important, and just these are some of the things you recently put in a newsletter. Is 8% of men are diagnosed with depression, and that number is much higher because men keep it silent. Men age 45 to 64 have some of the highest suicide rates. They haven't saved as much money as we think. 43% are obese, 24% less likely than a woman to see a doctor. Divorce rates over 50 have doubled since the 90s. And 55% say they hate their careers, dissatisfaction peaking in middle life. So there's definitely some angst out there. And how have people responded? I mean, clearly people are signing up and you're seeing a response from this.
The statistics that you pointed out there are alarming statistics. At the same time, I don't think they're very surprising.
Mhm.
And I think if you didn't look at even the statistics and you just simply looked around, if you looked around your neighborhood,
Mhm.
if you looked around your respective jobs or careers, if you looked around the grocery store, you looked around anywhere and just observed that you could put your finger on, we have a problem here with the majority of men. And what we're seeing also in Midlife Male is there's 53 million roughly middle-aged men in this country alone. We are just scratching the surface of the 1% of the 1% who are
Yes.
even interested in doing what you just said, which is taking that first step and actually even subscribing to the newsletter is a step. What we're finding is men want to, again, read in private, not appear vulnerable, dip their toe in the water, not be dropped in the deep end of the pool. They
Yeah.
actually don't really even want advice, or feel like they don't know anything or that they can't do it themselves, but rather shared experiences that they could proverbially learn from. They're not ready to really relinquish control, even though so much of their life is feeling like it's out of control.
Mhm.
So I really try to focus on the basics and simplicity. And simple is very hard, which is why most men don't do it. We were
Mhm.
just chatting before I think you hit the record button. And I said, I'm getting set up because I just got finished with a walk with one of my clients. And it's the simplest thing you can do to generate momentum, going from sedentary
Mhm.
to moving. So we meet every Friday morning for a single lap around the park
Mhm.
for a walk and talk. And it's an individual who we're in the process, and progress is a process, is one of the things that I say. We are in process of making some slight incremental changes to his lifestyle. That subtle move from conformity, complacency, redundancy to getting up, getting moving, from sedentary to movement. What would your life look like if you added 3 miles
Mhm.
every morning, 5 days a week? What would it look like to bring these simple things into your routine? Because you've been consistent. This is another thing we talk about consistency all the time. Every guy that calls me is consistent. They're either consistently making poor choices or they're consistently making good choices.
Right.
Where are we applying this consistency? You've been consistently sitting at home in the morning, wasting time, eating an unhealthy breakfast, drinking too much coffee, okay, and then just getting dressed and going to work. You're missing the other part of waking up, having a healthy breakfast, walking, then getting showered, then going to work.
Right. I
Which one
think
sounds better?
I think also, I mean, understanding the payoff for people, I think is a key here because when and you know this, you write about it. When we hear midlife, the next word people think is crisis, right? We think midlife crisis. And I think you do a great job of saying why midlife is the best. It's the sweet spot, right? And I mean, it can be if you make these changes and this focus in these certain areas and you invest in yourself.
I think so much of what we are talking about here is mindset. It's really, I mean, the flagship column that we write every week is called How I See It,
Mm.
which is really about perspective. You could see midlife as the beginning of the end. You could see midlife as crisis, or you could choose to see it as the beginning of the next and best phase of your life.
Mhm.
Everything is a choice. You referred to that earlier. These are all choices, and making the better choice the majority of the time, the majority of your life gets better. So this is not about being perfect. The middle
Right.
is messy. I say this all the time. The middle is messy, but it is also the sweet spot. So how do you choose to see it? Can I simply make better choices? The actions I take, the choices I make, my perspective and my outlook on what these next years look like, and the standards that I want to set for myself in how I live. I say a lot of times, like, run your life like you run your business. The men that come to me for the most part are accomplished men.
Yeah.
They're smart men.
Yeah.
They would never accept underperformance in their businesses quarter after quarter without making change. All I do is ask them, well, why do you accept it in your life? If you run your life like you run your business, you would not be accepting of underperformance.
Well, and I think they're critical of themselves when it comes to their I think personal reflection. I think we're our hardest critics sometimes, right? And that can be a hurdle for people to get over. Have you found that?
Absolutely. It's one of my rules. I've kind of 5 rules that I follow and that I work with guys on. And one of them is just that, it's grace, gratitude, and latitude.
Mhm.
We are exceptionally hard on ourselves. Men carry a lot of weight, a lot of burden. We tend to put others ahead of ourselves, and we think that that is our role and our responsibility and obligation as husbands, fathers, providers, men. That is kind of what we're taught or we have seen is the path for us. Go to school, graduate, get a job, get married, have children, get promoted, provide, all of this cycle, chase salary, title, all of these other societal metrics of success. And what happens is 5, 10, 15, 20 years go by, and you find yourself wondering, is this it? Or what's left for me?
Right.
Not in a selfish, again, per se way, but just in a realization, maybe I've put on a few pounds.
Hmm.
Maybe I'm drinking a little bit too much.
Hmm.
Um, there with the family, but I'm not present.
Hmm.
I'm not intentional about the actions I'm taking and behaviors and habits. Maybe some of my hobbies have dropped off. I'm not having the kind of fun that I wanted or thought I would be having. I'm having fun, but maybe it's not the right kind of fun, for me
Hmm.
anymore. And you
Hmm.
start to get into this questioning, like you're saying, is this it? Is this how it's going to continue to be? And that can mess with you. And it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, they get on the treadmill of life. I mean, we've all been right. You get on the treadmill and you're just grinding through it. And I think stopping and, reflecting like we're doing here makes a big difference. Um, you focus on 6 F's. I want to just point that out: family, fitness, finance, food, fashion, and fun. Of those, is there one that you find most men struggle with, that one that stands out, or is a little bit of each?
It's a great question. I mean, it's a little bit of each, and I think it's a little different for everybody.
Yeah.
When I look at those 6 F's, that is a pie chart, if you will, a holistic metric of success. That for me was this shift from, again, chasing salary and title, those men, to what would a more holistic metric look like. And those are the 6 things that were important to me. And I say this a lot to my clients: my F's don't have to be your F's,
Hmm.
but you do need to know what makes up a successful life for you. And the ratio of these, just like a portfolio, could be a stock portfolio, investment portfolio, real estate portfolio. This is a bit of a diverse portfolio
Hmm.
of these 6 things. Family, is my biggest chunk, in there.
Hmm.
Then fitness and my health, finance. It's a big piece, but we all might be wired a little differently. My definition of success and wealth might be different from yours. If you chase flying private and 10,000 square foot houses, it might be a different, percentage to you.
Right.
I think fashion and style to me matters. It's fun, it's confidence, it's how you want to be perceived and how I perceive myself. Fun is a big piece, and bringing that back in terms of the experiences that I have and that I share with my friends and share with my family over things. So it's different for everybody. And that's part of the fun also of this for me. And I think for other guys out there saying, listen, when we bring this process in general of personal growth and development and life by design, or reframing what success looks like for you, it should be fun. Let's
Hmm.
make it fun in its entirety. And one of the things to get to those 6 F's for me, and for whatever it might look like for other guys, is I'll backtrack a little bit. I really start with those 5 rules. What
Hmm.
came away from those hundreds of interviews with all these other high performing and accomplished men were 5 rules and a simple question. Rule number 1 was knowing what's important is what's most important. That's where the 6 F's came from,
Hmm.
was what's most important in my life, and I have to sit back and take a look at it. What does, like my friend Billy Mann says, what does the hit life look like? Not just the hit song.
Hmm.
Number 2 was, if you don't know where you're going, you're not going to get there. All of these men had a plan.
Right.
They had a map, what I now call the midlife action plan, the map. They had a good idea of where they were going. And now that can start shallow and wide, but ultimately it ends up narrow and deep. Am I heading west? Okay, I know I'm going there, and I'm going there for a reason. As I get further and further west, I start narrowing down. Okay, is it Vegas? Is it California? Is it Southern California? But it's all about knowing where you're going and figuring that out. The third one is called the ACE principle, which I talked about, this aggregate, curate, and eliminate.
Hmm.
A lot of noise out there, a lot of podcasts, a lot of books, a lot of men's groups, a lot of self-help, all of this. It can be overwhelming, and it can create paralysis by analysis and busyness rather than productivity. Oh, I'm helping myself, but you're not actually doing anything. So the
Right.
key is, again, curating it down after you've aggregated, curating it down, eliminating what doesn't work. The fourth one is really simple, and it's measurable and it's quantifiable. Show me your calendar, I'll show you your priorities.
Yes. Totally.
If you tell me family is your number one priority, I'm going to ask you to pick up your calendar and show me. Show me where date night is. Show me where time with your kids. Show me where their games are on your schedule.
Mhm.
Don't tell me that you have a work calendar and a life calendar and a personal calendar. And guess what? Everything with work comes first and everything.
Mhm.
Show me your workouts. Show me where those experiences and fun are. These are things that we can measure and that we can quantify there. And you don't have to be the CEO of the company and have tons of money to be able to do this. And this works for everybody. And when we were back into the time of day and what you're trying to accomplish, we've removed the shortcuts and the excuses, from this. And then the last one, like I said, is grace, gratitude, and latitude. Be nice to yourself because we're way too hard.
Yeah.
And this process is going to take time. You mentioned payoff. It is just that. It is having a purpose, having a process, and then ultimately you get a payoff. But without the purpose and the process, you are not going to get the payoff.
I think part of that grace that you talk about, and you talk about balance in your book, and that balance is a fallacy ultimately, right? Because we're talking about all these areas of our lives, and all this pressure to you got to be perfect in all these areas, and life doesn't work that way. Like sometimes you have a work project, right? That you have to tell your significant other, look, I've got to be locked down on this for 2 weeks. Like we're grinding out this proposal or this deal, but then I'm here, and then I'm on vacation. I'm on vacation. So I think there's a lot of noise out there about balance, don't you think? And understanding how to pull those levers is seems like it's pretty important.
It is, and I love the reference about pulling the levers because I think you're exactly right about this. I think we overestimate what we can do in a day, we underestimate what we can do in a year. There seems to be this perception that every day has to be perfectly in balance to be successful. The morning routine, the workout,
Yeah.
the recovery, the family time, the kid time, the dinner, family dinner, the work obligation. That just rattling it off seems overwhelming in any one particular day. And it doesn't work like that, like you said. At different stages of your life, during different even seasons, as I call them, work might take precedent.
Mhm.
Because, hey, guess what? I have that project, or I'm on an upward trajectory. I need to ride that wave, or clients are looking for certain things and I need to be responsive for them. By the way, these are my prime earning years and this is where we're going. And it all comes down to communication, connection, and collaboration, certainly at home.
Mhm.
And my life was different in my 30s when I was newly married, younger kids, different in my 40s. And now it's different in my 50s. And I think that balance is a term that is overstrived for and overused and over-indexed,
Mhm.
where what we're really seeking is we're seeking harmony and we're seeking total life wellness. I think we're seeking understanding of where we are and what we need at particular times of our life. And perfect is the enemy of good. And this striving for perfection and balance, it's kind of as diminishing returns.
So we talked about the 6 F's, and that I appreciate that you say it's different for everybody, because I think for me, there's a seventh F is faith. You
Mhm.
probably hear from people on that. And I think that is different for everybody, but that can help to drown out some of the noise out there, right? That helps tie into all of this. So do you find people talking about that with you as another element for them?
Absolutely. And I believe in it. The reason it's not one of my 6 F's that's out there is because I think that's very individual also.
Hmm.
I feel that spirituality is very important. I
Hmm.
feel that faith is very important. Being respectful of what anybody's faith and beliefs and religion and spirituality and how they approach that that's for them, overall. So I don't really get into it other than to be supportive of it. What I
Sure.
really get into are these areas where I feel, again, measurably and quantifiably, we can move the needle for how to optimize and maximize men's lives
Hmm.
in middle age.
Hmm.
And I think there's going to be a seventh F. There can be an 8F. I think for some people it might be 3 or 4.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
could be. It could be. I think in either direction. I don't necessarily think more is always better. I think better is better.
Hmm.
If it's less with more focus, then that might be the ratio for you. So I think it's a lot of what I try to do is allow men to find the answers to their own tests. But again, by sharing experiences, insights, access, following the rules that apply to everybody, asking themselves that very simple question of better one or better two.
Right.
Should I swap a soda out for water? Better
Yeah.
one or better two? Should I sleep in today or go to the gym? Better one or better two? Should I go to church on Sunday or should I, stay home? Whatever
Hmm.
these, how are we putting you in the best position for success so that when you look in the mirror, you like the man looking back at you? It's really as
The,
simple as that.
the thing that I appreciate, Greg, about your writing, both in your book and your newsletter, is you don't pretend that you're perfect and that you've got all the answers, right? I mean, we're talking about all these things, and you've accomplished a lot, and you're talking about a lot of positive things, but you point out your insecurities, where you've fallen short. I think that's important to share with people. And so I'm complimenting you on doing that.
Thank you. And I appreciate it very much. I am galactically imperfect and insecure and question choices and actions. I'm also inherently curious about how other men do anything there. And I always wonder, even more, wow, this guy looks like he's got it figured out. And this guy's calm and he's cool and collected and he never seems rushed. And, I'm always trying to look at the surface, like the analogy of the duck. The
Yeah.
duck on the surface,
Right.
and
Right.
underneath, paddling and going. I'm always trying to look at, okay, again, what am I not seeing here? And how can I apply that to my own life and continue to get better? I actually think, and I like simplicity. I'm going to tell you, it is simpler to share your insecurities
Yeah.
and be honest and be open and just throw that straight shot right down the middle
Yeah.
than it is to try to make up a story
Yeah.
and remember what you made up.
Yeah. And
Or a
people
lie
respond
that
to
you
it.
told or anything.
Yeah.
I go, when you really aim for simplicity, and I'm a simpleton on this, it's not to be out there saying, I'm so sensitive or I'm so vulnerable or I really enjoy, exposing my flaws and
Yeah.
mistakes and missteps. It is, Greg, that it's simpler and it actually lands harder with individuals.
Yeah.
And
People
I've
respond
tried
to
the
it.
other way. I've tried putting on air. I've tried playing the role. I've tried filtering the picture, okay,
Mhm.
having the editor tweak the writing and do all this. And something changes. And this is for all of us. A lot of I say, you go on feel. Something changes and it doesn't feel right. And it doesn't feel as authentic.
Authentic. Yeah.
And trusting your gut is a big piece of this, not just for me, but for all of the men out there. Inherently, I believe we know.
Mhm.
Be the best version of you that you can be when you're so authentic that you don't have to say the word because it just resonates out there.
Yeah.
Now you got something.
I think that comes with that. That's some of the things you talk about that come with midlife. Is why it's some of the best time. Where your kids are getting older, you're maybe becoming an empty nester. You don't. You say fewer fucks given, which I think is totally true. You get more confident, right? You can hopefully drown out the noise a little bit, and I think that's what you're talking about, and that comes through in your writing. And I was wondering, I mean, did you just sit down and start writing like with between the newsletter and the book? Because there's a lot of great content there. I just wondered, like, was that your background or how did that come about?
No, so it was never my background. I don't see myself even to this day still as a writer
Huh.
per se. I was always on the other side of production. So I produced a couple of movies.
Right.
I had a sports video company for years. I got involved, again, even in risk management and insurance, and had an entrepreneurial kind of mindset. And I always liked communicating and creativity and this notion of making things and figuring things out. There's I've always also been naive to the like to the extent that like sometimes ignorance is bliss. Well, okay, I could do that. I could give that a try.
Right.
Like, how hard could that be? Very
Right.
hard in there. Uh, and the writing was another thing that I kind of backed into. And my process even now is not so much that I sit down at a keyboard and write. It's I dictate. I talk.
Mhm.
I've really always been a talker, and brevity is not my strong suit. So I tend to go out on my own and talk into an app on my phone and record it. Or I'll be in my car just talking to myself. Or I'll be on the phone with friends or colleagues or anyone, and I ask permission if we can record the call.
Mhm.
And things just start to come out during that. And it could be an idea for a story, an idea for a topic, or something that I've read that strikes a chord, an article I've read, an interview I've had, something maybe you said. And then I start kind of throwing up all over into these.
Mhm.
And the beauty of technology right now is that there are some great apps to translate, that are able to take what I dictate, translate them. Then I go back and I read them. I throw 90% of it away.
Mhm.
Maybe I'll bounce something off my wife or a friend, and that's really what the writing process is now with the newsletter and the magazine. I love the interview aspect.
Yeah.
I love asking those questions. I do spend some time digging into what are the topics that men seem to be struggling with and are interested in, and then who else is talking about them and how are they talking about them? Do I agree with it? Don't I?
Mhm.
And try to take the position of really a layman's position. Kind of like, I'm not a doctor. I'm not really an expert in anything. I have a lot of interests overall. So again, how does your average 52-year-old husband, father, provider, man, what am I going to do with this? Like, is this interesting to me? Is this important to me? And how much do I need to know? The Cliff Notes version? Or I don't want to listen to a scientist for 4 hours. That's
Right.
just like not me. Like, give me the
Right.
three things that are going to help my life.
Right.
Which areas again matter? Back to those 6 F's that can help me be a little bit better with my family. Help me a little bit more with my health and my fitness. Help me with how I eat, and my nutrition. Oh, what do I like to wear? Okay, what are a couple of good brands and what does it look like to dress well in your 40s and 50s? Because I don't want to go look like I'm trying to be 20 again. And I also don't
Right.
want to look like I'm 60. What
Right.
are the little hacks and what are the little things that that can really make a difference? Those little wins each day that add up to, oh, wait a minute, like this feels better. Like I'm waking up a little happier.
Yeah.
I'm walking a little bit taller. Again, keeping it simple, like that's really all I think most men want. They want to wake up with energy and they want to go to bed tired, the good kind,
Right.
want to feel appreciated, and they want to be proud of themselves, and they want to feel like they're doing a good job in life.
I think tell me if you've had this response, but I think there's so much to be gleaned from this information for men in their 20s and 30s. They're in a different place, right? But this is called pay your dues. Like if you
Yeah.
do these things early, you're going to, when you get to midlife, you're going to be living the rewards that we're talking about. So do you hear from younger men about, about these things we're talking about?
Great question. Yes. So first, I'm raising two young men right
Uh-huh.
now.
Uh-huh.
Our oldest will be 22 in August. My youngest is 18. So I've got one going off to college for his freshman year. He's graduating high school next month. And I have another who'll be a senior in college. And as I mentioned, I lost my father when he was 47. So I was 17.
Wow.
So I was just becoming a freshman in college. So I'm learning this as I go. I tell my boys all the time. And so I didn't have that mentor, father figure. So therefore, I'm a slow learner and a late bloomer.
Uh-huh.
And I'm trying to experience this with my own boys and trying to help them see where the puck is going and what's around the bend, and ultimately to avoid as many of the mistakes and missteps that I made along the way. And I think what's interesting here, Greg, is that yes, the younger men, I get a lot of inquiries from guys that are in their 30s
Mm-hmm.
and that are seeing 40. These are successful men also, accomplished men that are in their 30s and they're rocking and rolling out there. They can feel the pressure mounting. They can feel the cost of living going up, the keeping up with the Joneses, all the other things. They're seeing 40 around the bend. They're looking at some of their contemporaries, guys around them. They've inherited a lot of people in their lives now through the other dads at their kids' schools, the little league team, other parents, the friends of their wives, their bosses and colleagues and clients. Then they're not really, these are not all my people,
Right.
also. They're seeing 40 and they're going, what was my dad like in his 40s? What did grandpa say? What is my boss like? And they're sizing up really what, like
Yeah.
what's ahead. And they're trying, and the younger guys, and I put this kind of like, call it 35 to 39-ish, in there.
Yeah.
That category, that avatar of guy, I'm seeing a lot of those reaching out because that guy is actually really proactive. That different generation is more attuned to asking for some help and getting some mentorship and
Mm-hmm.
looking for coaching to say, listen, I want to avoid that proverbial midlife crisis altogether. So help me, talk to me. What do I have to look out for to avoid this? Because I've seen this with some other people. I don't want to fall into it myself. So that's one avatar that I hear from quite a bit. And I love working with those types of guys and giving back because look, what is this all about? I mean, it's about lengthening our runway and shortening the learning curve. Can
Right.
you make fewer mistakes and missteps in your life early and then extend your runway into the most productive, happy, healthy quality of life you can have for the longest period of time? The second avatar is those guys that are right smack in the middle of it. They're in their midlife crisis mode. They've been
Yeah.
hustling and grinding and dealing and okay, this is confusing and they're not happy with anything. And it's that City Slickers movie deal. Is this the best it's ever
Right.
going to be? The best I'm ever going to
Right.
look? And it ain't that great. Help me, in there.
Yeah.
That's, really that's the primary avatar. And it's not just age dependent because I know some really old 30 somethings and some really young 60 somethings. It's really whenever that guy kind of feels it. It's a little different for everybody, but it typically falls into that, into that mid 40s. You're past 40, 43, 44. Now you're getting up to 46, 47. Now you're seeing 50. You're closer to 50 than you are to 40. And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And then the third one is guys that have come out of it. They've kind of gotten through it and they're sitting there going, okay, I got time. I got money. My kids are older. We're empty nesters now.
Yeah.
My relationship with my wife is different. And they just don't know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not making the best choices
Mm-hmm.
and they don't even really know how to make different choices because they've been doing the same things for so long. And what's happening is the metabolisms are changing. Maybe their wife's going through menopause.
Mm-hmm.
More friends that are divorced. There's nobody in the house. So the conversation, we don't know what to talk about because we used to just talk about the kids and all that.
Mm-hmm.
The hobbies they don't have, or the ones that they've picked up. It could be golfing or drinking or other things. Are not the ones that maybe they want to continue to do. They're not getting promoted anymore. They're trying probably more on the outs than they are on the ins with the business. They see that. And that's an interesting place for men to be, especially as our opportunity to live longer. Longevity keeps getting talked about. Like, hey, you may have 25, 30, 40 more years ahead of you.
Right. Right. And so yeah, make it the best years. And I think the health, you talk a lot about health and food and eating well and taking care of yourself. I mean, to me, that's such a key component of this, because a lot of those other things flow off of that. Like when when you work out, you feel good mentally, you feel better about yourself, you look better. I mean, the confidence comes and it starts to overflow. And it's so easy to not, to let that fall aside because of work or whatever. And then 10, 15 years go by. What advice do you give to folks to just get started? How do they get started if they're listening to us and they're like, man, I've got a couple of those things, but I'm getting an F on, a lot of those areas. How do they
And
get
that's what
started?
it's about. I mean, look, your show is called Pay Your Dues. That's it right there. It's not going to happen by default. I say mediocrity happens by default. Maximization happens by design. You are not going to wake up motivated. There's no meme I can send you, no quote I can send you. You're not going to wake up motivated every day, and nothing I'm going to do is going to motivate you. It's action. Action creates momentum. Momentum creates motivation. It's not the other way around. It's seeing positive return, feeling a certain way. My son goes to Colorado, so he'll be a senior at CU. And whatever you think about Dion, Coach Prime, it's, what does he say? Look good, feel good.
Yeah.
Feel good, play good. Play good, pay good.
Yeah.
Pretty simple. And in that regard, it's right. So it's not advice that I'm giving. I'll share this simple experience of when I get up each day and I move my body. Simplicity scales, complexity fails. I don't have an 18-step morning routine. I don't have a 26-step evening routine. But when you wake up each morning and you can take a few breaths, I do a little bit of breath work every morning. And I am saying hydrate, caffeinate, urinate, not necessarily in that order, but really simple. 20 ounces of water, 5 grams of creatine in there. I drink my cup of coffee. I do 5 to 10 minutes worth of breath work. And then I go for a walk. And for you, that might be 10 minutes. It might be 15 minutes. It might be 30 minutes, whatever it is. Want to make it more challenging over time? Then you can add a weight vest to it. Want to add a hill to it? Add a hill to it. But these are basics that are in there. And you start slow. And it's got to be sustainable. And again, it's got to be fun. So it has to be simple. I strength train 3 days a week. I mean, I publicize exactly what I do every day that's out there. And there are various ways to do it. I personally believe if you're not the most motivated, person on your own, before you go buy a piece of equipment, get a trainer. This is all about support also. What's going to give you the best chance of success? You're going to walk before you run. Before you go buy expensive things, like I call them expensive coat hangers, like Pelotons and things that people buy and they say they're going to use them and then they don't use them. Invest in people, invest in support. Get a coach, get a trainer. Not sure of how to eat or improve your diet? Step 1, go hire a nutritionist for 1 session.
Yeah.
And sit down and talk to them. Often people think that they have to go 0 to 100. They decide, I need to make change.
Yeah.
So I got to go from 0 to 100. Today's
New
the
Year's
day
resolution.
I start. So now I have to, they think like starting is, I have to do it all.
Yeah.
0 to 100 overnight is going to blow the engine.
Yeah.
The same as 100 to 0 overnight is going to fry the brakes. Think about this in terms of, again, how would you, run your life like you would run a business? Before you spend money, before you make an investment, before you hire somebody, you're going to go through, what are the KPIs? What are the criteria?
Hmm.
What's the thesis of our business? What are we trying to accomplish here? What does success look like? And it's the same with your life. I want to get in better condition. Okay, what does success look like? For me, I wrote it down: 175 pounds, 10% body fat, look pretty good with my shirt off,
Hmm.
not be injured, to be able to do what I want, when I want, with who I want for as long as I want. Okay, that's the health standard. So if I reverse engineer back from that, what does my week have to look like?
Right.
Here's how many days of cardio I need to do. Here's how many strength sessions I need to do. Here's how many days off I need at 52. Now, here's how I have to eat. Not perfectly, but what does 80/20 look like? What's on my list of approved foods? What amount of time am I allowed to just eat my kids' chicken fingers, and pizza that they leave over and all those things? And what works in my lifestyle? And that's what we do. We're really just designing these midlife action plans based on an individual's definition of success for them. And really, that's where you start. Tiny little wins each day.
And
Yesterday,
it's
I
not a
didn't have
zero.
to eat. Today, I do.
Yeah. And I think that's great. That's great advice for people. I think it's also important for people to remember it's not a zero sum game. So if you miss a day, if you screw up, it's like don't just stop. Don't give up and say I fell out, because we take a step back, but you got to keep going.
This is the part about, again, life by design, not by default. And really getting into what does consistency look like? Like you said, it's not a zero sum game. Consistency doesn't look like perfection.
Mm.
Discipline doesn't look like perfection. We're playing a long game here. And what does that look like? That looks like some days I'm dialed in, some days I'm not. Some weeks and quarters I'm doing better than others. I'm not going to put my triathlon in the same time that I'm writing my next book.
Yeah.
Mean, like, you can't do everything at the same time.
Right.
So when I'm writing and I'm working on a new book project, or I might be on the road speaking, guess what? In my pie chart, in that allocation, my health and my fitness, that's not the time I'm going to have my most intense and most consistent and hardest workouts. I'm not going to give them up, but I'm going to kind of, down regulate the intensity of certain workouts and the emphasis there, not beat myself up over it. And I'm going to upregulate what I need to put into writing and completing that next book and getting it in on time, or whatever it might be. My performance needs to be better on a stage in front of the crowd, giving a keynote, than it does necessarily in the gym. And if being in the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning and going hard for an hour and a half is going to negatively affect the keynote that afternoon because I'm tired, I'm burnt out, you're missing the outcome that you
Right.
want in there. So back to, again, keep it simple, keep it quantifiable. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. There is no perfection. There really is no, that's what balance looks like too. That's like you talked about, the fallacy of balance. It's not all in one day.
Right.
It's, we're looking at the big picture that's there. And don't underestimate the value of small wins again each day. Just
It-
one little better decision at a time. That's what adds up. And you're never going to graduate from this. This is one last point I want to make.
yeah.
There's no finish line.
Right.
There's not a day that I am going to finish my workout and go, I am in the shape that I want to be in now for the rest of my life. I
Right.
graduated. I can stop now. It doesn't work like that in any area. If I stop managing my money, my portfolio will not do as well. If I stop paying attention to my wife and kids, our relationship will not be as strong.
Yeah. But I think once you get that momentum, going, Greg, you don't want to stop, right? That's the beauty of it. Like once you see it, the payoff, it becomes easier to stay on that horse,
When you like yourself
Mm-hmm.
more,
Mm-hmm.
when you feel better, when you look better, when people are noticing, when you're proud of yourself, all of these things are connected. They tend to lead to, I'm more profitable, I'm more backable, I like myself better. People seem to like me a little more. I'm proud of the way I'm carrying. These things are all That's what's motivating, or I like to use the word inspiring more than anything. That's what's inspiring. This
Mhm.
notion of not just living, but living and leading by example. That's a really good place to be. And it doesn't happen overnight, the results, like the outcome that you're looking for. But what really does happen overnight is the day you take that first step, and then the next day, and then the next day, something just clicks inside your brain. I did something today that I didn't do yesterday.
Mhm.
I'm doing things now that I didn't do before. And wait a minute, it's triggering something in my head, in my mind, in my body that is telling me and reinforcing this is a good thing. It might be hard. My muscles might be sore because I haven't really used them before. I feel like I'm going down into this dip, because I'm maybe a little bit more tired at first. I'm a little bit more sore, or I'm not seeing immediate results, but there's something you can feel like if I can just work through this dip, I'm going to come out better the other side. Because again, we know the answers to the test. Doing it is the hard part. It's not the complexity of it. It's just doing the simple things and doing the simple things well.
One thing you also talk about in your book, which I think is key, is recognizing who we surround ourselves with, the influences around us. You talked about getting a trainer, and that's part of it, but also like you might really have to reassess like, do you have positive people around you or negative people around you? And what are you going to do about that? Right.
Yes, I think this is a really scary place for a lot of men because over time, and particularly in middle age, a lot of us, and I felt this way too, we kind of feel like we're set in our ways, who we're around, where we are, like this is going to be it. I've had
Hmm.
this poker group for 10 years.
Hmm.
My friends that I grew up with and went to high school or college with, we're different right now, but I've got so much history with them. They're still the group. These husbands of my wife's friends that we've been going out to dinner with for a while, like, okay. And it's hard to break from those things, and just again, using myself as an example here, when you hang around drinkers, you drink.
Hmm.
When you hang around smokers, you smoke. When you hang around people that don't exercise, you tend to not exercise. They do other things.
Hmm.
If you're on the board of a company and every day at 7, all the partners go into the conference room and sit there from 7 to 9 and they drink and they talk shit and they do everything. Well, here's what happens. You're there.
Hmm.
And what happens? You're drinking with them. You're shooting the shit with them. You're not home for dinner, seeing you. Like, there's a fear, and a justifiable one, of like, how am I going to make these changes that I want to make without wrecking everything else ideally in my life? Or, can I, or how? Who are my friends going to be?
Hmm.
How am I going to do this? I haven't walked into a gym in 6 years. I've been walking into this bar every day after work. So now you're asking me to swap 5 p.m. happy hour drinks for a 5 p.m. CrossFit class? This is really scary shit.
Hmm.
What I will offer to that is that it is not only possible, but it is highly probable for you to make these changes. If you are willing to do two things: one, take that first step, and two, trust the process. Because everything you want in life actually exists and is out there. You just have to be willing to go get it. And what I mean by that is the room with the drinkers and the smokers and whatever you've been doing, it's going to be there.
Hmm.
You can always go back to it. It's going to be there. There are people that do that are always going to do that. There are people that are going to be in that CrossFit class at 5 p.m. every day. They're also always going to be there. Both will accept you. Which one do you want to be in? It's hard to make change, and you do not have to make a loud. This is another thing. People think they have to declare things. Like,
Right.
look at me here.
Right.
You don't. You don't have to make some declaration of change and I'm going to shun you and put you out of my life. And I'm just,
That's right.
no, you just have to one day, don't go here, go here.
Hmm.
Hey guys, can't make it today for this. I have a previous engagement. Go over here.
Yeah.
You can do this in every single area. If you're used to being the guy who answers the phone on the first ring 24/7, you don't have to make a giant declaration. Listen, don't ever call me again at 9 p.m. at night or da-da-da, and change everything and blow everything up. You can simply leave your phone in the kitchen tonight
Great point.
and done. We tend to try to, we tend to think that these changes that we want to make or these things that we want to do, that we have to like signal that we're doing it. And here's the other thing: we haven't accomplished anything yet. There's no outcome yet.
Right.
We're just trying. We're in the testing and retesting phase. Day one is not the outcome. It's day one of ideally a lifestyle change that you are trying to make and adhere towards. So just take it one day at a time. What
That's
invariably happens is you will naturally gravitate to what feels best for you. It will be hard. It can be lonely. I lost a lot of friends during my process. I gained a lot of friends during the process.
right.
There were trades that were made along the way. There were swaps that were made along the way. There were certain things that I went back to. There were certain things that I never went back to. But this is about you curating your life by design of what works for you. The single hardest part of this is believing that what you want is possible for you, that you can have it. It exists. That 5 p.m. full CrossFit class is going on with or without you every day. That 6 a.m. class, if you're a morning person, is going on with or without you every single day. Half the time, the people in the 6 a.m. class don't know the people in the 5 p.m. class, but they're both, it's interesting. We meet up at the party, like at the end of the year,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh,
Right.
okay. And you find out that you're basically the same person, only this one's a morning version of you, and this one's an evening person of you in there. And it's not over just because you're in middle age. You
Great
haven't
point.
made your last friend,
Right. Yeah.
during the first 40 something years of your life. You haven't climbed your last mountain. You haven't done your last hobby. You haven't done these things are the opportunities exist and they're just beginning.
How have women responded to this platform? Because I think there's probably a lot for them to learn about the men they're married to or the men in their lives.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that question. So about 30% of the inquiries I get are from women.
Is that right? Wow.
And I didn't expect this at first. But what I'm finding is a couple of things. To your point that women are more attuned to, again, asking for help and being proactive in reaching out for anything that can help them. Can you make me look better? Can you make me act better? Can it make me look younger? Can it make me feel younger? Can it stop the jiggling under my arm? Like whatever, like they're pretty good
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
And women want the men in their lives to be better. Whereas the men think that they're doing the things that the women in their wives want. Again, I'm providing.
Right.
Okay. I'm not staying at work late for me. I'm staying at work late for you and for the kids. I'm not going to that dinner and the networking and the socializing thing for me. I'm doing it because it's part of my job, which in turn provides for us. The wake up early, the going to bed late, the doing the other things, the chasing even of the more money. Like we get it wrong sometimes. And what I hear from a lot of the women is we would like more of your time. The intention. We want you to be healthier. We want you to be happier. We don't want you feeling like you have this huge burden on your shoulders of doing everything for us constantly. And a lot of the times they say what the men are afraid to say. And they can see it.
Right.
And they reach out on behalf of the men in their lives. It could be their husbands, could be their fathers, could be their brothers, could be colleagues at work, could be their ex-husbands that they have to co-parent with for the rest of their lives. All of these things are in play. And I hear from a lot of women who ask a lot of great questions about how they can help the men in their lives. They want, would you coach my husband or talk to my husband? And it's a tough spot to be in, because here's the truth of the matter. The truth of the matter is, and you know this too, Greg, the guys got to want it for themselves.
Totally.
They got to want it for themselves.
Yes.
And one thing I say to the women that reach out like that is, I can absolutely talk to your husband, but I can't talk to your husband because you're making your husband talk to me.
Right.
You need to talk to your husband first. And you guys need to start communicating and collaborating and connecting around what is most important to you and the relationship and what you're seeing. And you can be encouraging, because a lot of guys, even that approach me about coaching, I'm gonna tell you something, they're scared of their wives. They're afraid of what their wives are going to think. I don't have it all figured out. I'm weak. I'm struggling. Then it makes my wife feel uncertain, and she gets scared because I'm scared. What's really happening with us? Do we have enough money? Is he secure with his job? What is he questioning? Is he questioning our marriage? Is he questioning the children? Is he questioning why is he reaching out for this stuff? So the husbands are really scared. The men are really scared. And then, I have to invest in this. I've got to spend money. So if I spend money on myself, and what do I have to do for her? This quid pro quo, And then there's another piece of this, which is also very real. It's like, hey, Greg, I want to do this, man. I want the coaching. I need the help here. But man, I am so thin right now, meaning like the school, the tuitions, the schools, the mortgage, the cars, the handbag for Mother's Day, right now. This, I am like, I can't believe how I got into this spot where this is what the nut is every single month. I'm on this.
They're on the treadmill.
hamster wheel.
Yeah, right.
So how do I even get myself in a position to make an investment in myself that doesn't just feel like another expense that I'm adding on to an already heavy load? Because the difference is, an expense is something I don't get any return on. I need to make an investment, and I need to see a return. That's what we're really going for here is, look, if anyone is working with me and they don't see a return on their investment, then this relationship is not working.
Yeah. I have no doubt on the return on investment. No doubt about it. Okay. Final thing for you is, how has your perspective on time changed over your life? Your dad died while you were young. He was a young man. You're midlife now. What is your perspective on time?
Time is the most valuable resource that we have. And it's the one thing that we can't make more of. So my perspective on it is to guard my time. Not to be guarded, but to guard and protect my time very carefully, which means what I say yes to and what I say no to. And that goes back to those rules. Knowing what's important is what's most important. When I plug all of that in, what does that leave over? Show me your calendar. I'll show you your priorities. When it's there and it's measurable and it's quantifiable, what does that leave over? I also require a considerable amount of open space in my life.
What does that mean?
That means overall, I'm introverted. I like being alone. I'm not lonely. I like and require alone time. I have anxiety, stress, depression, and I need to work a lot of that out on my own in there too. So I protect my time. At the same time, a lot of what I do now is very public, much more public than I ever thought it was going to be.
Right.
And I put everything I have into it, which also is draining. To work with these men one-on-one and really be there for them, I take everything personally and take everything to heart. It's draining, hours a day, on there. To be the best husband and father I can be is exhausting. Also,
It's work.
to train is tiring. All of these good things, they're all good and great things, but they fill my tank very much, but they also, they also drain it. So my perspective on time, to really directly answer your question, is to focus on things that fill your tank, that don't drain them, to protect and defend your time, and to not feel guilty about that. That learn how to say no politely, because it's the one resource, again, that you cannot make more of. And those are hard things, as somebody who wants to please, somebody who wants to say yes, to learn how to say no, who wants to help and who wants to share. But, or I would say, however, you can't be everything to everyone at the expense of yourself.
Right.
And that's where this time aspect comes in. I did write a piece about, meeting for coffee. How many times, do you get pinged also, hey, let's meet for coffee,
Right.
or let's meet for, or I want to pick your brain, or can I do? You can't do it all the time.
Right.
You need to qualify and quantify how and where you're going to give your time. And I'll just give you one more example of that. One of the things I've done around that is I've created some guardrails and I've created some boundaries about how people can get my time. Because at the heart of what we're doing, even at Midlife Male, is we're a how brand. How are you going to improve? How are you going to get better? How are you going to feel better? How are you going to do this? Okay, Greg, you told me protect my time. It's great in theory. How?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody gets a calendar invite from me that is longer than 15 minutes. Period. If this is a first-time conversation or you fit the criteria of getting some of my time, you will get a calendar invite for the 15-minute time block. And if that doesn't work for you, that doesn't work for me.
Right.
Now, here's the kicker. If the conversation's going well, I always have more time. But I'm giving you here, peel back. I'll give you the answer right here.
Yeah.
I don't schedule anything back to back.
Right.
I got more time on the back end.
Yeah.
But at the 15-minute mark, if it's not going well for whatever reason, or it doesn't require any more time, it's a very easy thank you. Or at the end of the time, I have to move to my next appointment.
Yeah.
If there's reason to extend it, half the time somebody says, oh, we're at time. We can go a little bit longer right now. Or I'll give you another one. Hey, I want to, can we meet? I'd love to pick your brain, or so-and-so recommended we get together. Terrific. I'm going to be at the gym tomorrow at 7. Meet me there. And when the class is over, we'll grab a cup of coffee on the way out. I'll give you 15 minutes. Oh, well, I can't do that, or I don't get up at that. Okay. How about next week? So, okay.
Right.
No, I can't. Here's the deal, buddy. This is where I am Tuesday and Thursday at 7 a.m. You can meet me anytime you want to. Outside of that, I am unavailable for this meeting. You decide if you want to make the time for that.
Yeah. It's a precious resource, time. I mean, that's why I asked you the question.
It sometimes seems a hard line, and now we've gone a little bit longer, but I really I think it trips a lot of people up, giving away their time. We're on this call right now because somebody I like very much made an introduction. Okay, somebody that's credible to me, somebody that I know and I have history with, and said, hey, I have a friend who hosts this podcast. This is who he is. Would you be interested in going on? Made the connection, looked you up. You fit the bill, and you get the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
And by the way, do you know how many no's I get? Still to this day?
Mm-hmm.
Hundreds a week. Sometimes they actually say no. Sometimes they don't say anything at all. But people that I want to interview, people that I want to talk, everyone is trying to play up.
Right.
Now you got me done. Everyone's trying to play up. Get somebody else's time. We want stuff.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But you've also got to earn it. Nothing ticks me off more than the entitled individual who thinks they should just get it again without paying their dues.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes hey, my answer is no. Not forever, but my answer is no right now.
And I
Call
also
me in
think
3
it's
months. Call me, let me see. Are you still gonna be here?
yeah. Are you still
You know,
around?
guess what? I'm not your episode 1 guest. I'm sorry right now. I'm your episode 400 or
Yeah.
whatever it might
Yeah.
be. Or I'm like, you gotta earn it.
Also, like, I think we waste time. I mean, like, right? With the intention to get started, like all these things we're talking about, it's like if you don't get started, a week goes by, a month goes by, 3 months go by, you've lost that time, you know? So it works that way too.
It's another great point. Sometimes the answer is, hey, you don't need to meet with me about what you want to talk about. You need to do the thing that you need to do the thing and stop talking about it. I'll tell you what, start doing the thing, then come and talk to me in 3 months or 3 weeks or 6. Sometimes that's the best thing you can do for somebody.
Yeah.
I know what you want to talk to me about. You've told me what you want to do. You're not doing it right now. The best thing I could tell you to do is do it and then come back to me.
Well, look, on time, I appreciate your time. We went a little over, so I really appreciate it.
No, Greg, I appreciate it. This is fun.
Yeah, it's been great. I really was looking forward to this conversation. So, Midlife Mail, the website, the book, the newsletter, right?
All at midlifemail.com. Not hard to find. You can find me at Greg Scheinman on Instagram as well. Instagram, LinkedIn, midlifemail.com. That's where I hang out.
It's great stuff. I will end with this. In your book, this is a piece from your book. You say a great philosopher once said that every human being has two lives. The second one starts when you figure out you've got only one life, which I think is perfect. Figure out there's one life to live and invest in yourself. So thanks for taking the time today, Greg. It's a great message. I appreciate it. And I think a lot of people get to benefit from it.
Thank you so much for having me, Greg. I really appreciate it.
You bet.